Welcome back, fragrance family, lovers of fragrance everywhere. Back to my channel, Stephen Sturgill. I'll be your host for the next few minutes. As I said earlier, guys, for those of you who tuned in earlier, plus my shout out, we're looking today at a fragrance I've been meaning to get my nose on for the better part of a year and a half, and that is Black Oud by Laurent Mazon from Paris, France. That's LM Parfums or Parfums. And I thought it was Italian initially because Mazzone is also an Italian name, but it's also French. So my bad on that. But what do I think about this scent? This scent retailed initially, I want to say, for around $250 a bottle, if I'm not mistaken. I'm talking about going way back to when it initially dropped. Then it dipped after about a year or so, year and a half. And then you could find it online through select high-end boutiques and discounters, occasionally discounters, for like 175 to 200. Now you can find it through some eBayers and other discounters for as low as around $60 to $70 a bottle, give or take, which is really cheap for Parisian niche fragrances, obviously. What do I think about this fragrance? So I sprayed it on right here. Let's talk about LM Parfums. Very interesting company. It's I believe started primarily by Laurent Mazon, who I believe he himself is a perfumer. If he's not trained technically, he's very much a part of the process, at least, if not more so than even Jeremy Fragrance, who got very involved, obviously, in the production of his own fragrance, using the great, fabulous nose of Alberto Morillas from Spain. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just pointing out that Laurent has a very, very illustrious, career / study. I mean, he studied the perfume art for many, many years now and is heavily involved in the design of all of his fragrances. I don't know exactly what extent, but we'll assume he's the lead nose for most of them at any rate. Okay, this fragrance, when did it drop? I want to say it was 2012 or 13. Let me see. When did this guy drop? Yeah, 2012. So it launched in 2012. There is a lot of gum of cistus in here. There's supposedly some Indonesian oud. There is nutmeg, cumin, incense, and then finally in the base, cedar, amber, sandalwood, and some musk. Now, all that sounds good, and it is quite good. But there are, for me, for my personal olfactory sensibilities and tastes, there are just a couple of niggling and nagging drawbacks. One of them, a little more major, I guess you could say, in a way, a bigger boo-boo for me. But this is definitely Extrait de Parfum concentration. When I applied it, it was very, very oily, very high concentration, definitely not anywhere near an EDT. But here's where a lot of people assume, oh, they're lying. It's not an eau de parfum. They're lying. It's really an EDT dumbed down, and I'm paying twice as much for a perfume. No, you're not. That's not how it works, guys. Many, and if not most, Extrait de Parfums contain next to no alcohol whatsoever, maybe like 2% or something. So there's nothing to naturally activate and start vaping off those aroma chemicals, molecules, right? To get that interplay, that dance going on the skin, other than, I hate to say it, sweating and getting hot. So that is why, in one sense, eau de parfums and extraits de parfums, they last a lot longer than EDTs, but they do not tend to effuse anywhere near to the same extent that really good EDTs do, because they're just vaping off the skin. That's why an EDT's projection is so good that first hour or so, give or take 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour. With other parfums, you're going to get whiffs and wafts throughout a long day, often cases even until tomorrow, but it's going to be more of a close-up encounter, unless it just has crazy amounts of aroma chemicals and concentrations. Even then, you tend not to get as much of an initial blast as we do with EDTs. I just want to get that little mini rant off my chest for the purpose of saying that this does wear close to the skin, but I can easily smell it coming out of the skin. Now, let me be clear. This is an excellently crafted scent. It's lush, it's soft, it's elite, it's nuanced. It's animalic, but not overly so. It's very woodsy for woodsy lovers. But I do have two pick-a-paw problems with this scent for me personally. Number one, first and foremost, the oud in here is just so dialed back and soft and safe. I get very little of that raw, pungent, like I'm going to grab you by the jugular and grab you by the Adam's apple. I don't get that here. Now, this could be heaven sent for people out there that want to approach oud scents, but are very scared of those grotesquely animalic, just overly pungent, overly powerful oud-based scents. This is definitely not in that vein. There is some animalic here in the form of castoreum and civet, but it's blended with an expert touch. It's very soft. It's quite mild. Yet at the same time, it's very detectable, along with that sandalwood and the musk, etc., etc. Now, a tiny word of caution. There is cumin, or comino in Spanish, in this scent, which for many of us fraghead lovers, fragrance lovers, scent guru wannabes, cumin is almost tantamount to being a synonym for BO, for body odor. There is some of that here. Whether I don't personally, I'm not really getting BO. I'm just getting high quality cumin. But if you get the BO, I understand. The incense in here is not so much of that church incense as much as it is, for me at least, as being a little bit of an ashy, smoky something or other. It's quite vague. It's very soft. This fragrance reminds me of a weird blend between some of the Comme des Garçons offerings. If you mix those with some of the Andy Tower fragrances, some of his smokier desert-like accord type fragrances, and furthermore mixed in a healthy dose of Black Afghano from Nasumato, but then dialed it all back a couple of notches. If you just patted all that down, I don't want to say watered down because that sounds insulting. That's not what I'm trying to assert nor get across. It does not smell like Afghano watered down. It just smells like a cleaner, safer, not so exciting Black Afghano mixed with some of those Andy Tower and Comme des Garçons fragrances. It is not as spicy or quite as rich or over the top as really any of those. It's not as smoky as Andy Tower. It's not as pungent or spicy as any of the Comme des Garçons. And it is definitely not as over-the-top decadent as Black Afghano. It's not as in your face. Now, if you like what I have said and this appeals to your sensibility, it's kind of like a mashup of all those fragrances. But again, low-key, that's the new millennial saying now. It's low-key, it's dumbed down and dialed back. A little bit watered down, just a tad, like maybe 5 to 10%. But mainly, it's got much more rounder edges. It's less spicy. It's less pungent. I would have loved this fragrance if it had been a lot sharper, more heavy-hitting, more pungent. Definitely, they should have amped up the oud for my sensibilities. I would have liked some other little spicy ingredient in there, maybe like, I don't know, red chili powder or a little rose with mandarin orange, something to jazz it up. This is just not very jazzy as high dollar niche fragrances go. It is very good. It is expertly blended. And if you like the fact that it's woodsy with a hint of oud, as a strong note of the, what do you call it? The cistus gum mixed with a little bit of cedar, a little bit of amber, a little bit of sandalwood, a little bit of that smoky incense and nutmeg. But it just kind of sits here. It never really goes up the mountain like Moses. It just kind of sits right in this area. Now, if you like what I've said, by all means, go out and buy it, get you a decant. In fact, I do recommend you buy a sample before you pull the trigger on a bottle. Having said all that, you can find this on eBay and certain discounters for as cheap as around $60 to $70 a bottle. Remember, when this is all done and gone, it will probably be commanding at least $300 to $400 a bottle because it will no longer be in production. Word to the wise, just get that out there. Make sure you are aware of a potential buying opportunity that could pay big dividends down the road. Well, that's probably going to do it, guys. I like this scent, but unfortunately didn't quite love it. If it had just been amped up, jazzed up, made a little bit more spicier, then I would be a massive fan. I'd be bowing down right now to the house of LM Parfums, out of Paris, France, obviously. But it is a good scent. I wouldn't personally classify it as great. It's definitely not groundbreaking, but it is high quality. And so if you like the fact that, again, just to reiterate, it does smell quite a bit like a mashup of stuff like Pardon and Black Afghano from the House of Nasamato, mixed with some of the Comme des Garçons stuff, like oud, wood, and those types of frags, mixed with some Andy Tower, like L'air du Moroccan, with that smoky desert vibe. This has all of that in it, but unfortunately, then it's dialed quite a bit back. It's like it's pulling all of that extra read all about it back to a safe spot or a safe zone. And I just don't see the need for that. If you're going to go hard and bring it. If you're going to make it oud, this should have been just oud emphatic. It should have been spicier. It should have been more resinous. On the other hand, it is definitely an extrait. The Parfum that when I put the liquid out here on my skin, it was very thick, very rich. Clearly a real extrait de Parfum, which you don't see that much anymore, unfortunately. Too often they're just jazzed up eau de Parfum concentrations, and they're claiming it's an extrait. It's an interesting scent, guys. It is good. It is very high quality. It does have a masterful blend. But like I said, at the end of the day, if I'm buying an oud scent, first and foremost, I want oud pounding me. That sounds weird. But in the olfactory sensibilities, I really want that sense of Middle Eastern oud. Furthermore, and I could do without all the pungency. It's got to have some jazzy spice to it. It's got to bring it. I want some orange bergamot or some neroli, some cranberries, something in there with a little red chili pepper or black pepper, white pepper. I want something lifting this up out of the ordinary and making it extraordinary. This had and has a lot of the foundation to be extraordinary for sure. It has the right DNA, but the perfumer just chose not to take it to that level 11, a la, what's the movie? Spinal Tap. They go to 11. Yeah, and I don't even, quite frankly, I don't think Laurent here even went to an 8. I think he stayed around 7.5. That's just not going to cut it for me, guys, especially had I been asked to shell out the original $250, at least, I believe, when it initially dropped in Paris back in 2012. I think it was going for like $275 or $250, something like that in US dollars. Fairly extravagant price for what you're getting, in all honesty. But at $60 a bottle on eBay, you may want to pull the trigger. You could always sell it later, guys, and maybe make a bundle in the process. That's going to do it. Mike tuned in finally. He says he picked up an Oud 36 Nuit. It's heavenly and oudy with no oud in it. Oud 36 Nuit is supposed to be more beast mode. Very cool, Mike. I'll definitely check out Oud 36. Yeah, and that brings me up to one last point, guys. I'm not one of these oud reality sticklers that demands, oh, the oud must be real oud. I'm gonna tell you right now, guys, and I don't have time to get into it. There are more reasons, if you care about this planet and if you care about human lives, I encourage you go on YouTube or other channels. Please watch what's going on in Indonesia and Laos, and I don't know, maybe even parts of Vietnam. I don't know, parts of India. People are being murdered, killed, Killed, for oud wood in the raw. I kid you not. They are being blown away in cold blood, sometimes potentially, possibly under some of the so-called authorities' auspices, because the money is simply too powerful and extravagant. If you want to support an industry that is fairly semi-okay with that, be my guest. I'm not trying to proselytize. I don't like the idea that I'm buying something that literally 5 to 10 people have been just murdered or beaten to a pulp for. I would much rather that we get a synthetic version that smells very realistic, and knowing that I'm doing the right thing, I'm helping Mother Earth, I'm helping to save human lives, man. But I'm again, that's a topic for another time. I it's a huge topic. Yes, it is like ivory, but worse at this point because human lives are being taken. But I digress. There is a reason that Saudi oud has dried up. Their preferred oud chips have gone the way of the dodo bird, for the most part. But no, Alexandria fragrances do not use real oud, and if they claim that they are, A, they're probably lying, and B, it's probably intermixed from the very, very cheapest style that you can kind of get away by calling oud. And if that's the case, that's a much, much cheaper wood. It's very similar, but it's not even second class, or it's not even third class. It's like fifth class or something. But again, that's neither here nor there, guys. All I want is a fragrance that evokes the elements that it claims to. I don't care if it smells like tobacco and has no tobacco in it. Why do I care? I don't. But I want it to smell like the element that they claim that it has. And quite frankly, guys, any of us who've been in FragCom for more than several years, or been in the fragrance game, or even just on the collector side, if you look at someone like Jean-Claude Elina from Grasse, France, one of the premier, most idolized perfumers on earth in the history of perfume, he actually gets off. Like, it gives him joy to create aroma chemicals that absolutely are synthetic, but they're extremely accurate. They're developed off the real thing, right? So they are real in so much as on an aroma chemical level, they have most of the DNA of the actual real ingredient, like let's say pomegranate or banana or orange or grapefruit. They have the gist of that actual molecular DNA in the synthetic. Okay. So here's why I don't understand why people just say, oh, it smells synthetic. Oh, it smells cheap. Oh, it's not natural. Here's the problem with that thinking, guys. You could be smelling something that you think is natural and it's totally not. And you could also be smelling something that you think is synthetic and it's totally organic. It depends on the way you blend something, the way you meld the molecules together, the different notes, different accords that you're going for in a blend. All of these things create a concoction that can spread the gamut from extremely synthetic smelling all the way up to absolutely raw and organic and natural. And beauty is all of that and somewhere in between. It's in the nose of both the creator that it's in the hand and the nose of the creator, and it's in the hands and the noses of us, the end users, the let's see, animalic or precious woods. Manny says animalic or precious woods, or in the process to be banned. Yeah. I don't know that all the natural notes, Manny, are actually going to be banned. But if you listen to or watch some of the interviews online with Roja Dove out of England, of course he's a global trotter, world hopper, but he's made it really abundantly clear recently that many natural organic compounds are and will continue to be made legal by IRFRA and other organizations. But to your point, sometimes year to year they'll modify like an entrail of the long compound list. And what perfumers have to do and labs have to do, and technicians, they have to go in and snip off a very specific part of the molecule, and then everything else that's left, it can still go in, and it can still very much be natural and raw, but it can't have what they consider to be whatever compound was causing the issue health-wise, which I assume would be allergies in most cases. In most cases, we're just talking about skin allergens, possibly respiratory as well. Yeah, and there's always the vintage market, guys. If you're a hardcore nut on only buying real and authentic, well, then go back and buy some stuff from early 1900s and 1940s and 50s and 60s. By roughly 1970, we're really already starting to come into a massive influx of synthetic. And by the 80s, they were almost all synthetic. Not in terms of some of the higher end stuff certainly used a lot of naturals, but they also used a lot of synthetics in their base matrices, like Chanel, for example, going way back, in fact, for their aldehydes and their heliotropes and things like that. Mike says, yes, a few bottles of 1930, El Ducel Tobacco Arar. Wow, that sounds very interesting. And then if you also, guys, I highly recommend you watch some of the interviews with the House of Matriarch, developer and owner and mega developer. She's super famous, The Nose. She talks about how, and I'm not going to go over it ad nauseum, how she as well owns a lot of bottles of very old vintage stuff. And many of those smell, at least to her sensibilities, as powerful, as fresh, as fragrant, as fantastic today as they did 50, 60, 70 years ago. So I definitely disagree with a lot of the so-called authorities in the field that claim that, after 40 years, too much of the organics are broken down. It's going to smell like crap. It's going to be weak. It's going to have no sillage. It's going to smell muddled and weird. Each to their own. I mean, let your nose be the judge, guys. Smell it. If it smells good, wear it. If you don't like it, it smells bitter or it's gone flat, sell it, toss it out. I don't know what. Sell it to some perfumer for historical purposes. I'm just reading some comments here for a sec. Let's see. Insar Oud 1. We've seen valuable down the road. Yeah, I agree. Any of the Insar stuff is already exceedingly valuable. And it's going to just go up. Probably forever, more than gold. But yeah, there are a lot of cheap ouds. Mike writes, there are many cheap ouds that work. I agree. There are a lot of fantastic cheap ouds that work. For me, Atkinson's is just top of the leaderboard, just head of class when it comes to ouds. The Varvatos oud for me is phenomenal for what it is. It is very animalic and Middle Easterny in terms of vibe, and I think it smells high quality for a designer. I like the Boss personally. I think the Boss is pretty good stuff. Some of the Dua fragrances, guys. Yeah, a lot of the Dua stuff is quite good. I won't necessarily say it's all great because I don't believe that, but it's certainly wearable at a minimum. And you'll save a lot of scratch if you want to buy some of the Dua stuff that apes stuff like Creation E from Roja Dove, et cetera. But Mike writes that Haney's stuff exceeds Dua's stuff. Very cool. Who is Haney, Mike? I'm not familiar with the name or the reference. If you could just type that down for us to know who or what house does Haney represent. I'm not familiar. Okay. And Mike also writes he has Shalimar, 80 years old bottle, and it smells like it did when he was a kid. Yeah, I've never heard of dark, dirty, unctuous aroma. Sounds interesting. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My bad. I'm sorry. Yeah, Haney Hafez. Okay, now, duh. Now I got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was thinking of a different Haney. My bad. Brain block. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know about the background of Hafez as well. I personally like a lot of the Alexandria stuff. I don't necessarily find it all groundbreaking. And if you can afford to buy real uber high end niche stuff, I wouldn't personally mess around too much with either Alexandria or Dua. On the other hand, a lot of us sort of mid level guys that have some to a lot of niche, to some to a lot of designer and lower end cheapies. Most of our circle does in fact buy a lot of Duas and a lot of Alexandrias. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to throw shade at either house. I think they're wonderful for what they are, and they often do present a very viable way for a perfume, a young nose or an underwalleted, is that a word? Less cashed out individual to enjoy fragrance that very, very closely mimics a fragrance that they just cannot for the life of them afford right now, if ever. Especially if we're dealing with things like Creation E that sell for $1,000. That's just way, way out of the wheelhouse for the average human being. I don't care what country you're from. That's just an astronomical price to pay for scented water to some extent. I know there's oils in there. I get it, but you know what I'm saying. And some have more oils than others, and yada yada. You can get a lot of cheap oils out of India, guys. If you want good cheap oils, check out India. Check out the Middle East. Both those areas, if you will. Of course, the Middle East is a big area, obviously, but yeah, out of the Emirates, for example, and out of Saudi Arabia, out of Dubai, and out of India, you can find some phenomenal, exceptional oils. The point is that a lot of us, we wear an oil, and the oil is good and all, but it's not in and of itself as interesting as a well blended perfume, or it simply smells a little bit been there and done that, 10 times before, where it's just so similar to other oils in the region. It's just not that unique. And that's just my personal 2 cents. But I'm not saying there aren't some great oils out there. There certainly are. Again, guys, it depends what you want to wear, how you want to blend it, how you want to rock it, what your tastes are. You do you, and I'll do me, and we'll all do ourselves. And that sounds kind of weird, but I mean, we're just here to share and learn and expand and share the love of fragrance, guys. That's it. Oh, very cool. Mike writes that Haney lives a few miles from him, and he's seen his labs and knows it all. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I forgot the acronym of DUA, standing for dirty, unctuous aromas. Yeah, I agree, Mike, and I'm not trying to start a family feud between the two remaining houses. That's not my purview at all. I'm not trying to get between camps that may be either very pro Alexandria or very pro Dua. I feel sorry that it happened for sure. I feel your pain, but a lot of that happens in the fragrance game, and I'm really not going to comment too much further on that. It is what it is, and again, I'm just an outsider looking in. I'm not trying to start a war or not. It's too late for that to happen. But I'm not trying to create bad feelings between ardent aficionados of either camp. They may or may not know that history. If they do, yeah, it's sad. It's what it is. It's what it is, and it is sad. But they're going to both, I assume, keep on rocking and doing what they're doing, and more power to them ultimately. It's a business. It's rough and tumble, and sometimes we get burned in life and we get burned in business. And I'm not AOKing that, but we get burned in relationships, and life goes on, man. You got to just keep on trucking. Wow, Mike, you have a lot of fragrances. I have a lot, but I think you have more. Very cool. All right, guys, that's going to do it. I've gone way over time. Well, not way over time, but I've gone a little bit over time what I was planning to actually spend. Again, in a nutshell, if you're just tuning in, guys, this has been a review supposedly on LM Parfums by Laurent Masson. Black Oud Extrait de Parfum. Excellent juice. Maybe for me, not bottle worthy because, as I said earlier, it's just not. It's not ultimately sharp enough, spicy enough, oudy enough. It's very good for what it is. Don't get me wrong. And some of you out there are probably going to love it a lot more than I do, but it just didn't bring the punch. It just didn't bring it. This came in at like a volume between a 6 and a 7, and I was looking for a 10 to 11, a la Spinal Tap, and they just he just didn't go there. And for those reasons, I will probably not be buying a bottle, except maybe as an investment, because I think it's on its way up. Anyways, that's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've got another review coming soon on this guy, Decibel, from the house of Azzaro, or Azzaro, however you want to say it, here in Los Estados Unidos. Very cool, underrated, under the radar frag. We'll get into that next time. Thanks so much, guys. Love you. Peace out. Happy New Year. And tune in again. Spray often, spray well, live life on your terms. Peace out.